Welcome back to your Wednesday morning. It's Hump Day across the state of Michigan. Michael Patrick Shields on radio stations all across the state and on Fox 47 television as well. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was on Piers Morgan last night on CNN, and they actually went back to Chris Christie's high school and did most of the interview in the gym on a couple of chairs. Chris Christie, known to be very outspoken, very conservative, and a lot of people thought he was the perfect kind of guy for the Republicans to run against President Obama because he's completely different. And he's a round fella, let's put it that way. He's got a completely different, break-the-mold sort of appearance for a presidential candidate. He has so far demurred from running in the primary for the GOP nomination, but here is a little bit of what you've heard. You know, Chris Christie has a reputation of being a sort of a shoot-'em-up, loudmouth sort of guy, and here is how he sounded yesterday, in case you've never seen him interviewed or heard him, with Piers Morgan.
You're the guy that the party likes. You've got the admiration of the public. Why wouldn't you?
Because that's not the way you make decisions like running for president of the United States. Put it really simply, I don't want, if I ever were to make that decision, I wouldn't want to say, I know I can win, I hope I'm ready. I'd rather say, I know I'm ready, I hope I can win. And
but why aren't you ready?
Listen, I've been governor for...
How old are you now?
I'm 48.
How old's Barack Obama?
Yeah, he's about 50, I think, right? Listen, if it were just about calendar, John McCain would have beaten Barack Obama, you know, if that's the way you gauge readiness.
No, but my point would be that to take on Barack Obama right now, he's flying high on the back of bin Laden being killed. You know, the economy is perceived to be a weak point, which it was probably always going to be. Tough to come out of a big recession like that. Your party is crying out for a savior, somebody that they think has maybe the youthful energy and dynamism to combat that strength in Obama, someone who's got an economic track record. You know, when I look at all the checklists, there aren't many names on it now that tick the right boxes right now for the Republicans. You tick most of those boxes.
And you know what? Those are all, I think, appropriate and maybe accurate tactical judgments. That's not the way I'm making this decision. I'm making this decision based on whether I believe in my heart that I'm ready to be president of the United States and that I want to be president of the United States right now.
You're a straight talker, right?
Yeah.
We're 18 months away. It's a long time in politics. It's a long time in life. I don't believe this is 100% closed to you. And I don't think you could look me in the eye, given everything that's going on, and say, Piers, I'm 100% certain I'm not going to run. Can you?
You're wrong. I'm 100% certain I'm not going to run.
Let me rephrase the question.
Sure.
You're 100% certain you won't run this time. Are you 100% certain you won't run in 2016?
Well, you have so many variables to that, Pierce. I couldn't say I was 100%
Give me a percentage.
certain. I couldn't.
Given you're not running this time, who do you think right now is the best option for your party to take on Barack Obama?
I don't think we have a best option yet.
Who most impresses you personally?
A lot of those folks impress me personally, but none of them have emerged in my mind yet as a best option. When one of them do, I'll say it publicly.
There you have it. Chris Christie, the New Jersey governor, and Jeb Bush, the former Florida governor, the brother of George W. Bush, son of George Herbert Walker Bush, is in Lansing today. He's going to meet with Governor Snyder and Superintendent Flanagan and some others talking education, and he too has said, no, I will not run for president. Speaking of running, one of the reasons a lot of people choose not to run for president, in addition to the time away from your family and the fact that it costs an awful lot of money to get elected these days, is the cash. It's the cash, it's the cash. And there's a campaign watchdog group saying that nearly $23 million spent on political ads on television went unreported. It's Rich, I always want to say Rich Rodriguez. It's Rich Robinson from the Michigan Campaign Finance Network. He says the state has weak election disclosure laws and that $70 million since the year 2000 has been spent on behalf of candidates without it being reported. Taking issue with that is Steve Linder from the Sterling Corporation, Campaigns and Communication. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
Is it true that candidates were elected, including the Secretary of State Ruth Johnson, Supreme Court Justice Mary Beth Kelly, and Virg Bernero, the gubernatorial nominee, they had commercials run without any of their own funding on the ads?
Well, I am not sure whether they were elected without any of their own funding on ads. They were elected with their own funding. They ran campaigns. They filed campaign finance reports. Rich was a little bit clever in talking about campaign advertising, but one thing that I would want to point out is, Rich likes to mix what money is spent on and how it is spent legally. There are two different kinds of ads. One are called express advocacy ads. Those are ads that are spent directly asking voters to vote for or against candidates, and those are fully disclosed. And then there are issue ads, ads that talk about particular issues and may ask you to take action by talking to an elected official at the local, state, or federal level. Mm-hmm. Those, the court has decided, are not express advocacy ads, and therefore they're treated differently by the law, but Rich doesn't seem to want to care what the law requires. He has this vision that any dollar spent on any public discourse must be disclosed in the way that he feels it should be disclosed.
So to sort of simplify it, if we know that, let's say, Verge Bernero is in favor of a gas tax, okay? Not saying that he is, but just hypothetically. And an issue ad comes out about why a gas tax is such a good idea. You're connecting the dots between the candidate and the issue and saying that that should be reported sort of as a candidate spot?
Well, I guess let me clarify. If there's a candidate that has taken a position on an issue, we're not talking necessarily about candidates. Sometimes we're talking about people that are already in office. Mm-hmm. If you have an interest in arousing public opinion on an issue, and you want people to call their elected officials to ask them to vote one way or another and mention that official's name, the law, as upheld by the federal courts in the United States Supreme Court, says that is not an election ad. That is an issue ad. Mm-hmm. And Michael Patrick, while we're talking about disclosure, I don't know what Rich's agenda is, but I have asked him many times in debates that we've had to disclose the source of his funding, which he has refused every time.
I see what you mean. So if you have an issue, let's say you want you want money to be spent on a bridge in Detroit, a public bridge. Then you say, call Verge Bernero and tell him to vote yes for the bridge, or Alan Cropsey, I'm just throwing names out. Then that technically is an ad for the candidate because it mentions his name, according to Rich Robinson?
Well, that's according to Rich Robinson. Mm-hmm. It's not according to the law. This is my point. Rich wants a change in the law, and so he is claiming that issue ads are nothing more than candidate ads in disguise and ought to be treated as such. Well, if he thinks that that's the case, then he ought to go to the legislature or the United States Congress and convince them that that's the case.
Isn't it true that sometimes they are?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it true that sometimes they are?
Well, no, they're not. The law says if you advocate on an issue, even if you mention an office holder's name.
But they could be crafty sometimes, I would think, in the way that they're presented. But the law is the law. As he says, that's Steve Linder with the Sterling Corporation.